Hi, it's Tony here again. Well, we have another panel showcase today, and this time it's something I've been working on for a little while. Just literally completed and thought I'd go for a quick flight, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to do a video and upload it to the channel, and it's for the Cessna Citation Longitude in Microsoft Flight Sim. So it's been a panel that, or an aircraft that I've kind of wanted to fly and not had any panels for it for a long time, and I've been busy with lots of other ones, so I thought I'd finally get around to doing this one, and didn't think it was going to be too bad, but it's been a right royal pain. But we got there eventually in the end, and yeah, I've got as much capability now on my Air Manager panels as the in-sim aircraft has. There's lots of things about this default longitude that are not functional in the sim. Let's hope that perhaps changes over time. Some of the extra functionality, I'm sure some of that will come with the upgrade to the working title G3000/5000 that should be coming fairly soon. So hopefully we'll see some improvements there, and hopefully some improvements to the actual aeroplane too. Anyway, without further ado, let's have a quick look at the. Let's have a quick stick the external power on there to just get ourselves powered up while we're on external power. No worries about the battery going flat or nothing, so that's good. Let's have a quick, I think, chat through the panels, because this airplane's going to get very busy soon when we take off. I've just plumbed in a quick flight plan from London City to Southend. So it should only be a short flight, particularly in this longitude. As usual, it's not about the flying per se. It's more about the panels and just showing them in action, I guess, in this longitude. So I'll say I've just put in a quick flight plan for that. So hopefully most of that we'll fly on the autopilot. We can have a little bit chat more about these panels, but effectively what you see here is the left hand side panel. So you've got the GTC Touch on the left, two independent ones here, so I can for instance choose one option on the left one and obviously something different on the right one, so you can perhaps leave one on frequencies or whatever and kind of control it for that, and you can set up your inset map if you want to on the PFD. This is all touch possible, so I'm touching this with my finger. So I'm using the great pop-out panel manager, which I showed in one of my other videos on the channel. If you haven't seen that, go take a look at pop-outs with the touch bonus video, all about pop-out panel manager. It's a great, well, not almost, it is an essential tool now for using these Air Manager panels. Is such a great tool with Microsoft Flight Sim not having the default native capability for things like touchscreen operation and taking away the focus from the main sim window when you touch or click on a window that's part of the sim, like the ATC window or one of these pop-out windows. And so it kind of, it's got a workaround for the touch and a workaround for the sim taking focus, because then your flight controls don't work. So all those issues it solves, which for me makes it basically essential. It's a great tool, free. Go make a donation. Once you've used it for a bit, you'll realise how great it is. It's a great little tool, and congratulations to the developer for that. So with that, I guess much more waffle. What we see on the left side panel here, aside from the two GTCs that we were just touching on, is the main, obviously, G5000 display itself, and then the switch capability of that left hand side panel within the longitude. So you've got a little barrow knob. There is more of a control panel there that the barrow knob is part of. I didn't model the whole thing. I was going to. I've got space for it, as you can see there, but none of that other stuff really does anything. So I mean, if it does in the future, there's nothing to stop me modelling that whole panel. There are some additional buttons on there for things like map range, direct to, and all that kind of stuff, but you can control them from the touchscreens and the knobs on these GTCs, etc. And that doesn't appear to work in the sim at all. Any of those buttons and knobs are not functional. So the only one that is the barrow. So I decided just to model the barrow just on its own little panel there. The warning and cautions, you'll probably see them pop on and off as we start up and shut down, and as various things come on and off. So they're up there on the left hand side, and then below the main primary flight display is all the switch gear. So we've got a couple of dimmers. Well, actually there's 3 dimmers there. There's a dual dimmer at the top, which does the brightness for the PFD and the GTC. Now the GTC doesn't work. It dims the GTC in the sim. The one here externally, I could incorporate dim, but then it would block the touch from working. So I've decided not to put that in. If ever they fix the lighting so that the pop-out panels dim properly in the sim, then I won't need that. But you can see here, I'm just turning that dimmer down now, and you can see the PFD's getting darker. That's the screen brightness at the same time the standby instrument does. I'll put that on the same one. So you can adjust the brightness of the display there. And then the other one below it is a map light, which is just a general overhead light which illuminates down, and I've used that as the background brightness for the pedestal that's over on the right hand side panel. Next to that's just a blanking panel, just to fill up a bit of space, and then the main electrical switch panel, which took a fair bit of time to do because it's a bit of a challenge with the way that they've coded the electrical system in the Longitude. I'm hoping for some Air Manager improvements in that area to help with that moving forward, but it's mainly functional as it is. We can turn the batteries on there, and we can open the bus tie, or we can close off and keep them separate. You see the caution came up while we did that, and we can turn the main electrical buses on and off. You see certain things are going on and off as we're turning them on and off there. I'm getting a few warnings and cautions. Anyway, and then obviously you've got some there's generator switches there, the external power, which I already had on, but that's there down there too. There's a switch for the APU, and obviously a standby power switch as well. So we'll switch that on for the moment. We'll switch the generators on in a minute when we've got the engine going. There's a landing gear panel nested up, fairly simple, just a handle. The landing gear annunciation is part of the MFD, which we'll have a look at on the right hand side panel in a minute. And then the ice protection switches. Now the ice protection switches are on the right hand side in the real aircraft, but I was a bit limited on space. I could have probably crammed them in there. There's only 5 buttons there, but it was just easier and nicer to put them here under the PFD, and they are only just slightly right at centre, the anti-ice control. So I've got the anti-ice capability on all of those, and so they work. I don't think the tower one works. No, the tower one doesn't work because again that's not modelled in the sim. And then at the very top, other than the usual tail number, at the very top is a standby instrument. So this is modelled after the real one in the sim, and yeah, it's pretty much the same unit. We can see the knobs to enables here. For the knobs, we can adjust the barrow there, and it's just a version, and it's not using a pop out, so it's a standalone proper dedicated Air Manager instrument that simulates the standby instrument in the Longitude. Let's turn that caution, acknowledge that caution. So that's effectively the whole of the left hand side panel, and then on the right hand side panel again it's dominated by the MFD display, and then the pedestal, which takes up pretty much half of the screen over on the right hand side there, and then surrounding the screen at the very top you've got your autopilot. Autopilot, if you look at it just at a quick glance, it looks very similar to the Garmin GMC 710. It's not. It's a different model, the GMC 7200. So the knob and the button layout is a bit different, and there's this speed control dial where you can switch between manual and FMS control of your speed, because obviously this aircraft has got auto throttles. So there you go, and there's a knob on the end of there for adjusting the speed if we need to use that, and then the usual autopilot controls with a course knob, heading, altitude, and then the usual mode buttons there across the top, and the annunciations for when you're in one of those modes. So a little bit different on that autopilot panel. It's a bit of work. And then below that, again, I did think about putting the autopilot below the MFD and the light switches above there. I suppose I could do that as an option. They are that way round in the aircraft, the light switch being in the normal overhead. But my eventual plan is to get an overhead, so I probably will move that. Well, if once I get the overhead, I will move that over onto the thing, and that will just disappear off of that right hand side panel. But the autopilot itself is a little above the displays, but I guess that's where I felt it kind of felt the most natural, if you like. So I've put for the time being, I've put the light or the overhead panel, what I'm calling it. It's just a strip effectively with all your light switches on. So while we're here, actually, we'll go ahead and put the anti-collision light on, and well, arm the emergency lights. The dimmers here are for the panel lighting, so this one here will adjust the if I get time, I might adjust the time, because I think we're getting light in here fairly early in the morning. And then the floodlight is just an overall illumination for the panel. So all that's working. The panels are basically all the backlights, the text and the white lines and everything else that you see in the Longitude. All of that is illuminated from behind, what they call backlit. And so that panel dimmer adjusts the brightness of that backlight for you, but you're not really going to see the effect of that, and unless we were sort of flying in darker conditions as it starts to get towards night. So next to the overhead is just a little ELT panel, little flashing light on it, similar to the one in the real or in the simulated aircraft, and a Hobbs meter next to that, which is also in that model. So all of the bits that are working are on the panels here. The bits that are not, some of them I've chosen not to put in at all because they're just not working and they serve no purpose or no function. And this is similar to now what I'm going to talk about on the Pedestal. So over on the far right hand side is the Pedestal. So everything that's in the middle section of the Pedestal, where the engine throttles are, and all the surrounding controls and switch gear that are in that Pedestal section of the Longitude, are on this panel here, in pretty much the locations that they are on the Pedestal, give or take one or two that I've had to use a little bit of artistic license to manage to get it all to fit on there without making the items too small. So try to keep them as sort of lifelike as in size as I possibly could. That's a fair size Pedestal in the Longitude, so it's difficult to do it 100%. But all the buttons are there, and the most important thing is all the ones that are working and functional in the sim for controlling all the things that you need to fly the aeroplane are actually working here. So for instance, the park brake, you see the park brakes turns on and off there. The APU, we can go ahead and actually turn that on and do a start if we want to. We'll turn it off for the moment. The covers for these switches all open, and you can control the switch underneath it once the cover's back. The speed brake handle, you can slide up and down for the speed brake. If not everybody has a speed brake control on their throttle quadrant. I don't at the moment, so I put it on there. I guess you could not have it if you didn't want it. Same with the auto throttle. The auto throttle are buttons, and the auto throttle disconnect are buttons that are on the yoke. Again, not everybody may have that. Some people may have it as a button. If you've got it as a button, then that's great. You wouldn't need to use the soft button here, but these are functional and they do work. So it's nice to have them on there. Flap, handle. You can touch that for flap control, or I've got a dedicated flap button here, so I can control the flap, but it gives me a good indication of where the flaps are in terms of the handle, and you do get the graphic, of course, on the MFD on the left hand side there. You can probably see the flaps coming up and going down. We'll put a notch of flap in there, might as well. And then the panel that's normally, this is probably the one that's not quite in the right location. The panel at the very front, which has got the aileron trim and the rudder trim on it, is at the very back on the pedestal. Normally there just wasn't physically room to get everything in and get that fitted in as well, and there was spare space up the front here because obviously I've not got the throttles on there, because you know pretty much everyone's got a throttle quadrant of some sort, even if it's a basic one on a joystick, so you don't really need the throttles. So I chose to put the aileron trim and the rudder trim controls at the front on that blank space. So that's a little bit of the poetic license I was talking about earlier. That is part of this pedestal. So I guess that's pretty much it as a quick overview. I guess we ought to do a start up and then go for a fly, and we'll see how far we get, whether or not we get to Southend and land, or I pull the plug short on the video, who knows, but maybe we'll get there. It's only a short flight, so without me rambling on too much more, we can get sort of going on this. So I think I already put the collision light on. Yes, I did. So the first thing is we want to probably do is turn our fuel on, so you see the valve there changes from closed to open. I'll just do that again for you just so you can see it over on the right hand side there. Then you have a fuel selector here, which is just a switch. You can choose the left or the right hand tank if you're doing a transfer, but we're not doing a transfer, so we're going to leave that off. We've turned the valve on, so why don't we go ahead and get the APU started. So we should be able to watch that. We've turned it on now. We'll turn it over to start. You see it just momentarily goes over to start thing, and now we're watching for the APU, and you can see here in this section of the MFD the APU percentage is coming up. We're at 50% currently, so we'll have a working APU in a moment, and we can turn the APU generator on from the left hand side electrical panel. And there we go, we're at 100% for the APU now, so we can go ahead and turn the APU generator on. Let's just so you can see that. So the APU generator is just down here on the electrical panel on the left hand side, down at the bottom there. So we'll turn that on. We're now, if we wanted to, we could probably disconnect the external power and just run off of the APU. And there we go, we have power and we're running on the APU. Okay, so one of the next things to do is to get the engine started. So let's open these covers for the engine run controls, and let's put the right engine to run. So what we're looking for here is we're looking for the the ITT will start coming up, and you'll start seeing the M1, N2 and the fuel, the oil pressure, all these engine parameters here. Once we hit start, so if we press start for the right hand side engine, there you go, we've just got a caution saying that the ignition's on now. Well, it would be because it's doing an engine start. And we're just beginning to get a spool up here on the N2 percentage. can maybe just hear that the ITT's beginning to come up now, and the fuel flow too, and the oil pressure, and you can see the oil temperature is rising too. Just acknowledging these cautions as they pop up during the engine start. Okay, pretty much we've got a successful start on the right side engine. You can see the ITT is now stabilised, and we have an N2 percentage of 59.9, and around about around about normal on the M12. Okay, so we can go ahead and do the same for the what I'll do is I'll just close that cover. We don't we'll leave that in run now. We don't want to touch that again now. We'll leave that so it's got a safety cover on it, so you don't inadvertently turn it to stop. We'll do the same for the left-hand engine, so we'll set it to run. We'll actually close that as well while we're here, and then we'll push the left start button, and when we do that we get the ignition and starter caution come up again. Acknowledge that. Again, now we're getting to see the N2% rise, and then eventually we'll see the same parameters like we did with the other side engine start to increase for the left hand side engine here. And there we go. It looks like we have a successful start. So we can go ahead and switch these generators on now on the electrical panel. So we've got all our power generation on. We have the bus is isolated because the bus tie is actually closed. Good. We can probably, now we have all that running, we can probably switch the APU off. And there you go, you can start to see the APU wind down now. Now that we're actually powered by the engines now, we can switch that APU generator off on the left side panel. That's pretty much it. It's fairly easy to start the Longitude if you know the switch sequence there. Once you realise you've got to have the fuel switched on, and then using the run buttons and the starters to start that start sequence. And then really out of the rest of these controls, these temperature cockpit controls they do work here in the on the Air Manager panel, but they're not doing anything in the sim. That isn't really modelled in the sim. Again, like I said at the beginning, I'm hoping that some of that will come in time, and hopefully I can add the functionality to get that working. So out of the rest of these buttons, there's only really you can see some of them are functional. APU bleed is one of them. And the left and the right engine airs and the dump switch will work as well. I'm not going to press it, but the dump switch underneath that cover is also functional. The controls lock doesn't really do anything. I guess just procedurally you may put it to unlock, but it doesn't affect how you fly the aircraft. And then the other one, of course, is the trim. If you want to use, I've got trim buttons on my yoke, but if for some reason that stopped working or failed, you could set the secondary trim here, and you control the trim. As you can see, the trim here now in this this section is displayed as I'm adjusting the as I'm adjusting the trim. We can just get the trim up there in the middle somewhere. Or of course I can just control the trim from my usual buttons on the yoke, which I'm doing so now. So there you go. That's the basics of the what's on the longitude panel. I guess we can go ahead and start to get out of it. Again, nothing serious. We're gonna just have a quick slide down to Southend now. Let's just make sure that we're got our speed bugs on. Yep. I'll just check them landing ones again before. Okay. Let's just check the flight plan. Yep. Okay. I like one of the nice features, you can select the half mode there on the MFD map, and so you can see other things over on the, you know, if you had a chart there, for instance, you could see the chart on that side and look at the other thing on the other side, or you could have a look at the weather or the traffic, or just the regular map and like the flight plan on the other side, and then you can toggle between the two different sides, or go back to the full screen, which is what I tend to prefer. But I mean, it's good for looking at if you want to look at a couple of things at the same time. Or you've also got the inset map, which you can adjust different zoom levels on the inset map that's on the MFD, which you can turn on over here. I think the inset map, yeah, there we go. So there's another little map there on that side that you can adjust independently of the main one, but it tends to get, as you can see there, quite cluttered if you're depending on what you've got on there, depending on your zoom level. Okay, so let's release that parking brake. Let's put our taxi light on. Of course, you can adjust your zoom on your map there, which is always useful at these airports for trying to figure out where you are. Quite overcast here today. This is live weather. Well, we've got POIs on there. I had those left on. Obviously, being London, there'll be a lot. So we'll depart out of London City here towards the east, out towards Southend. It should be a reasonably short flight. I think the approach takes us just slightly over into Kent, and then on the approach into Southend. Right, I think we'll join on here. Looks like we're clear on final. I have our landing lights on now, and our recognition lights, and our pulse light. And turn that taxi one off. We have a notch of flaps. As I say, it's not very far to Southend, so I think what we'll do is we'll dial in an altitude of, oh, I don't know, have a think. We don't want to go too high, do we? How about we say 6,000? Probably not high enough, but that'll probably do us. And we'll sync up the heading bug while we're at it. And we could dial up a speed. I'm going to say 200 knots initially. We're less than 10,000 feet, so we'll keep the speed down. Okay. That should enable us to get out here and get onto the autopilot fairly quickly. We'll zoom that map out now. We don't need any guidance to the runway. You can see our flight plan there. We're just basically going to fly down the Thames pretty much. And then it looks like we're going to begin our approach across the into Kent slightly, and then over the estuary into Essex. So let's go. A little bit high with the I2T there, I'm going to be careful. Positive rate, gear up. And flaps up. Oh, we're not into the soup already, are we? We're coming back onto course here. No, a bit too fast there. Quite a bit too fast, got busted. ATC. I forget, I don't fly this that often, the Longitude, but I always forget how fast the thing is. It's like a rocket ship. We'll get the autopilot on, I think. before you know it, we're at 6,000 feet already. But it was a wise move. Have a quick look at that flight plan. There we go, we're beginning our turn already. And I think it might actually be wise to actually drop down. I'm not going to use the auto throttle for this flight, it's so short. By the time I get it set, it'll be time to turn it off again. I think that user waypoint that you can see out there, oh sorry, that's not a user waypoint, point of interest I think is what I meant to say, is Southend Pier. So you can see, look, we're on the localizer ILS already. It really is a short flight in this longitude. I've done this several times in many other airplanes, never in this one, but it's never as quick as this. Hence, this thing is a rocket ship, so we just deployed the speed brakes there, try and bleed off some of this speed, because before you know it, we're going to be in the landing phase. Just coming in here, we'll have the gear out as well. I think we've had enough of that speed brake now, but we will have a notch of flaps. So the gear is down. We're a bit below the glide slope. A bit of a stutter there, that's unusual, don't get that very often. That's more like it, 135 knots is where I should be. Suddenly bleed that speed off from nowhere. Firm landing there, but we're down. There we have it, that is London City to Southend in rapid quick time in the longitude. A bit wide on the turn there. Trying to turn round. Like I said, it's not about the flying, it's about the panels, but these are the longitude panels that I hope now to get better at flying the longitude, because I say I've not flown it that much, not having the ability to control lots of stuff on the panels, and I've only just literally finished this full set of panels now, so I'll be looking to do a few longer flights in distance, not particularly in time, but you can get a lot further obviously in this thing, in this incredible machine. So this is a payware scenery, so this is probably why, if you're thinking, actually looks quite nice with these aircraft here on the ramp and the nice models of the buildings. That would be why. Very nice one, I can recommend it. I can't remember who the developer is off the top of my head. I think there's only one for Southend in the marketplace. But if you're really interested in there's more than one, then drop a comment in the video and I'll look it up and see which one it actually is. But I think there's only one for Southend in the marketplace, so if there is, that would be the one. But it's very nice, quite accurate. I have been to this airport a lot, and I can say it does actually look really good. I'm not going to go driving into a Ryanair. Don't think they'd like that. I'm going to park it here. There you go, nice little model of the radar swinging around there too. We'll put that parking brake on. And then we'll just quickly show you the shutdown procedure. Turn that flight director off. Okay, so we have got external power available, so we will have that. And then it's just a simple case of opening the protected switch covers on the engines. Should have turned all those lights off. Everything was happening so fast. We didn't get a chance. And then setting it to stop. And again, the opposite of when we started up. All the engine parameters should start to slowly wind down. Just keeping an eye on them, making sure that the ITT is not going to spike into the red. It doesn't look like it's going to. We're going to get a few warnings and cautions along the way telling us that the oil pressure has dropped and whatnot. But obviously we're in the shutdown phase, so that's perfectly okay. Okay, and then cover that one up, and the same for the right. Didn't clean those flaps up, did I? Let's do that. Can turn those generators off now. They're not going to be doing anything. And then close our fuel valve. Turn our standby power off. And then we can go ahead and shut the buses off. And there you have it. They are the panels that I've developed for the Cessna Citation Longitude, which, as you probably saw there, is a bit of a handful to fly if you don't fly it that often, or you fly GA mainly. It's certainly a speed rocket. Everything happens so much faster. That flight from London City to Southend, I was actually expecting it to be a little bit longer than that, but yeah, it happened in no time at all. So yeah, we was easily able to get the landing in there. And yeah, we didn't even have enough time to descend properly, so I was having to bleed the speed off. But it's all fun and games. I shall certainly be flying the Longitude a lot more now that I have these panels, and so hopefully I should get better at managing that particular aircraft and learning the systems and the phases of flight more appropriately, so we can do it in a little bit more planned coordination in the future. I hope you enjoyed the panels. Hopefully we'll be thinking about releasing a batch of about 6 or 7 panels. We're going to start with the analog cockpit, so any of those videos that I've released that show analog steam type cockpits, so that we're not involving too much with the pop-outs. There are pop-out variants on those, but they're only like options, so that each of those panels will have a completely non-pop-out option as its default, and then you can add in things like the GTNs and the GNSs and whatnot. So I'm hoping, crossing fingers, that it won't be too long but before anyone who's interested in those can get their hands on them. And then these ones like the Longitude and the Kodiak and the DA62, the Caravan and the G5836. I'm just trying to think what other ones there were, but there's several of the glass cockpit ones. We're trying to come up with something a bit better for the pop-out process, and then hopefully we can see all those panels released too. And I know a lot of you are eager to get your hands on some of those and give them a try out, give them a play. And I'm just as keen as you are. I'd love to get your feedback. I'm the only one that's really played and tested with these so far, so there may be a few little things here and there that I know that maybe isn't as intuitive, so I'd like to try and improve those and get those as good as I can get them once some people get their hands on the panels and try them out. So I will endeavour to do that, and I hope I'll have some positive news on that front fairly soon. Thanks for watching this video anyway. This was the Cessna Longitude for Microsoft Flight Sim. See you again soon. Bye.